Hi, welcome to the August live event for Essential Vegan Desserts. I'm Fran Costigan, the director of vegan pastry at Ruby Online Culinary School and the lead instructor for Essential Vegan Desserts course. And I'm so happy to be here. Thank you all for taking the time out of your busy lives. I know everyone's pretty busy to come and spend this next hour or so with me. I'm really interested in this topic. You might see behind me, I've pulled my kitchen apart to take some of the equipment that I wanted to talk about. Before we get started, I want to do a little what I call housekeeping per usual, which is if you have a question to ask, and I hope you do, it's super simple to do it. On the right hand of the screen, there's a Q&A, and you just type your question in. I'm going to get to as many questions as possible. I want to welcome guests who may be familiar or unfamiliar with Ruby, students, our Ruby students, any of my graduates or students going through the course right now. I want to just remind you that if you have a question of a technical nature, write to support@ruby.com and someone from our stellar team will get back to you with an answer. Anybody here, anyone, students and anyone here can write to me at fran@ruby.com with any kind of question or comment. I'll be happy to see if I can help you out. And in terms of questions that have to do with assignments in the course, there's a Q&A on the dashboard, and you may even see that your question has been answered. If not, just write in another question and you'll get to perhaps have some help with your assignment. You know, what we say at Ruby is eat your homework. And we do. So I've been just thrilled with what I'm seeing coming in from the students. I love grading, and I think it's a wonderful course. So I'm very excited about that. But this is a big topic, really. So I want to get started. I mean, there could be a part B and C. What I was considering was, let's start with what's really used. And that could be different for everyone, depending on where you are on your journey of pastry work. And if there's anyone here from the savory side, some of the equipment is interchangeable, certainly. And what is nice to have? And nice to have gets a little interesting. We could say, depending on your budget or your interest or your storage space, nice to have. I think when I think about what I need in setting up my pastry kitchen, I just want to put a little Post-it note there and say that in Essential Vegan Desserts, there is a list. There is an equipment list for our students. So you go through the list and you will really see, you know, when you compare it with the recipes, what it is that you really need for the course or for a basic pastry kitchen, and what you might want to get later or not. When I'm setting up, you know, when I'm thinking about going into my kitchen to start working, I think about making sure my current notebook is there, that I have pens, both ordinary pens to write in a notebook and indelible markers, because I have tape and I mark anything that I've made, the container or the package, with the name and the date and any information that will help me later on. I like having a metal ruler. It helps measure pans or size of a cake square. Kitchen cloths. I've got a whole bunch of kitchen cloths, kitchen towels. Mine are kind of color coded. Blue means that I'm wrapping my produce in them, and red means I'm wiping. And I have a lot, and they go in the washing machine once or twice a week. For the pastry kitchen, you still need a few good knives. Knives are very personal, so you want to make sure that a knife is going to feel comfortable in your hand. To cut fruits and vegetables, cakes, sliced bread, those might be different knives. So again, find the ones that feel comfortable in your hands. I like to have a paring knife, a chef's knife, and a serrated knife. I want to show you a new paring knife that I got. This was actually a gift from my friends at Fante's kitchenware store in the Italian market in Philadelphia. It's a wonderful store. I know Chef Short Nolan likes this store as well. Chef Kathy Gold, pretty much everyone in Philadelphia, but it has a very long handle. And it was given to me as a gift by Mariella, who is the owner of Fante's, after I did a book signing there. And I thought it's an Italian knife. I thought that's kind of really odd. My hands are on the small side, and this just fits really nicely. Of course, I use a serrated knife for cutting loaves of bread and many loaves, actually. So of course, if you have knives, you're going to need a cutting board. I have several. I don't ever cut fruits and vegetables or chopped chocolate on a board that's used for onions and garlic. I keep them separate. I have something, I'm going to be moving around today, but I can do that because Ruby got me one of those mics where you can move. So where is it? Well, let's see. I'll show you later because I don't know where it is, but I have a board that I use when I'm cutting chocolate that is flexible, so I can pick it up and kind of hold it and do that. And the chocolate just goes into whatever container I want. I use Silpat underneath my boards to hold them steady. I know many people or you may have been taught to put a damp towel underneath, and that works as well. But I have quite a lot of Silpat, and I don't use my Silpat sheets as often as I use parchment. Of course, you want storage containers. I like to use clips to close bags, and then jars with tight fitting lids. I recycle jars that food may have come in. I get them sanitized and I use that. Now, for a must, I have several oven thermometers. You know, you may have the most expensive, brand new, top of the line oven in your home, but you can be sure that it's likely not calibrated correctly, and the calibration may change. So you need to check your oven thermometer. I have 2 in my oven. Of course, it hasn't done me any good for about 3 weeks now because my oven stopped working. And I was very happy to have my Breville countertop oven that I bought probably a year ago. I was testing a lot of recipes. Was developing recipes for a couple of companies, and I have a single oven. My oven, when it works, has convection mode and proof mode and all kinds of nice things, but still I could only do one thing at a time in it. I really like my Breville oven, and it does have a convection mode, an air fryer mode, and a dehydrating mode. I keep an oven thermometer in there as well. I also think that an instant read thermometer is a must as well. It might not be as much of a must if you're not doing chocolate work. I take that back. But here's another must. And I have put a link, or Patrick, this event is being brought to us by Patrick, who is our post-production and production person, director of at Ruby, and has taught me how to do these events. But this is my favorite scale. Comes out if your bowl is large. And for very small amounts, I have what's called a jeweler's scale. And maybe I'm measuring a quarter of a teaspoon of agar. My big scale, my OXO scale, isn't going to measure that. This is, people say you can use a nickel, but I calibrate both of my scales before I measure. Now, weight is more precise than volume measuring. That's certain. That you can put that in stone. But that said, the recipes in Essential Vegan Desserts work with the measuring cups and spoon when you follow the directions in the recipe that says whisk, dip, and sweep. And that refers to the dry ingredient because dry ingredients settle. We aren't using gram weight right now for a couple of reasons, even though it's more precise. For example, we have students all over the world using all different brands of flour, for example. When you specify King Arthur all-purpose flour, there is a particular measure. Other flours are going to weigh differently. So for example, a cup of all-purpose flour is said to weigh 5 ounces, 142 grams. The gram weight is slightly rounded. Now, I've been converting all of my weights to gram weight, really, because, and my scale toggles, both of them toggle back and forth between ounce and grams because it's easier to scale recipes when you have the gram weight. But I know for sure that if I were to ask 6 testers to weigh a cup of flour, I really expect to get some different answers. And you may have noticed, or if you start looking now, you will notice some difference in published recipes. And the differences are due to the brands, the hands, and even the scales. I've talked to my friend Rose Berenbaum about this, and she one day she was interested in my chocolate cake to live for, and she got a slightly different gram weight from what I had sent her, and she asked me what scale I was using. Those little bits don't matter as much. But what I suggest to all of my students and to everyone who's listening here is weigh your own. So if the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of AP flour, 1/2 cup of whole wheat pastry flour, you put the AP flour in a bowl, use the tare weight, means you go to 0. You write down what that is, and then you go to 0 again, and then you put the whole wheat pastry flour in, and you go to 0 again. So it's an easier way to measure, but you have your own reference going forward. And when I'm doing a new recipe, I will weigh things more than once to take a chance, to be certain. So we have a video that Patrick, if you would run it on using a scale. Oh, okay. Well, we have a link for you in the document on how to use it, but it's really very simple. So here's your scale, you put your bowl on the scale. Well, you turn it on. I always want to turn something on. And then you go to 0, that's the tare weight, and you put the flour in or the cocoa powder or whatever it is. I use this for liquid as well. Again, because it's easier to scale down and up ingredients when they're in gram weight. These scales are not very expensive. I've got Amazon links there. You don't have to buy them from Amazon. I got mine probably at Fonte's, but it's a good place to see reviews. And the little jewelers, the little tiny gram weight scale is called a digital pocket scale, but do check the calibration. Now, we need mixing bowls, right? So I have both stainless steel bowls and tempered glass. This is just some of my mixing bowls. I have much bigger ones, but I feel like they're so important. I like to have a lot. I also use these. I prefer not to use glass in a kitchen. I think for obvious reasons. I don't want to drop something and have glass all over the place. But certainly sometimes it's nice to see what you're mixing, or if I'm teaching a class, this is nice. And these can go over heat. So I have all different sizes of those. Now, whisks, balloon whisks and flat whisks. Very important. When I was working as a pastry chef at Angelica Kitchen in New York City, I was tasked with making 8 cakes at a time, and we did not have electric mixers. The owner wanted everything made by hand. So in that case, it was bigger bowls and bigger whisks. But different whisks have different jobs. So this whisk is a balloon whisk, and it's a little bit flexible. It's going to aerate your mixture, whereas something that's stiffer is not going to aerate. I have these in all different sizes. One of my favorite little whisks, this is called a flat whisk or a sauce whisk, makes it very easy to get to the bottom and the side of mixtures. So I do like that. This became I think this is something that is super old-fashioned, but became trendy again last year. And it's really nice. It's a Danish whisk, and you can use it to mix heavy mixtures. So I like that. And while I'm in this big container, and this is really the way I keep things, of course I have lots of my spatulas. I prefer these little offsets, and I have larger ones as well. Yeah, let's look at the whisk video.
Whisks come in many shapes and sizes and are not created equal. They all have a different purpose. This is a French sauce whisk, which is an older type of whisk. It's very rigid and used mostly for heavy and thick sauces or for thick batters, where softer whisks would bend too much. These smaller whisks are ideal for mixing small amounts in smaller bowls. These are balloon whisks. The main purpose of the balloon shape is to rapidly incorporate air into mixtures like meringue or whipped cream. This is where a balloon whisk with its large, flexible spines are most effective. This little whisk will simply take far too long to whip properly in this large bowl. As a general rule, the bigger the bowl, the bigger the whisk.
Okay, so there was our video. Thank you, Patrick. So now this is a whisk that's useless, in my opinion. If anyone disagrees with me, let me know in the Q&A. This is a silicone whisk, so I think that it's probably not supposed to scratch nonstick pans, maybe. It doesn't do anything. It's too soft. It's too whatever. I want to talk to you about things that I never have enough of. These are silicone spatulas, heat proof. These are professional ones. You can buy them anywhere at all. And they last, and they're sanitary, as opposed to, I bet some of you have had to fight with your food processor or your blender, and then your whisks get like this. They get kind of chipped. I don't use this. That would not be very sanitary at all, would it? But I keep it to make the point. So I like these, and I have them in all different sizes. This one is got a little bowl. It's like a little spoon spatula. I don't actually use it as much as these. And this, these little ones, I use this just to get things. I don't cook with them. They're more fragile, but I really like these. And having enough really helps, Now, do you need this many? No, you definitely don't need this many. Wash and dry your equipment as you go along. I do. I have 2 compartments to my sink. When I'm working with chocolate, I have my electric kettle going because I like some really hot water, and I keep a container with soapy water, and I wash things as I go along and dry them. And then you don't have to have so many of those, but buy sturdy ones and figure on replacing them. You just know. Now, strainers, I don't use one of those, triple sifters, but I do sift, but I sift through a strainer. So I have 2 sifters that I use for flour, cocoa powder, sugar, and I have others that I use to wash berries, grains, and beans. Now we're talking about a pastry kitchen, so of course we need to talk about baking pans. I don't like silicone cake pans. I know that there are people who are doing the whole food plant-based no oil, and you don't want to oil a cake pan. I have small silicone cupcake pan, individual cups, and I line them with a cupcake paper. The eco-friendly ones actually are non-stick. I'll do that. But if you're going to be, and again, if there's somebody here who has had success with it, let me know. But I know that I did a vegan cake once in a large, I think it was a tubed silicone cake pan. There's nothing for the cake to hold on to, and it was a mess. So you want to have cake pans. You don't need a lot. I'm just going to uncover what I have here. I have these loaded up. So most common sizes are 8 and 9. I use a 9 often. This is a 2-inch. I believe in the course we specify a 3-inch simply because it's more useful. It's more versatile. But I have both. And then I line my cake pans I lightly oil the sides and the bottom, and then I line the bottom of the cake pan with a parchment circle that I either make myself from the parchment paper that I have, or you can buy liners. And then I like to have cake boards that are coated to move cakes around, and that's very handy. So I have big stacks. Something like this is nice to have. Unless you're going to be doing something, petite, you don't need these cake pans. I see that I've got this one already has the liners in it. Sometimes when I have some spare time, it's like a mise en place thing. I do that. So 9-inch cake round, 8-inch cake round, an 8 and 9-inch square, and a 9 by 13 should get you pretty much everywhere. And you want to think about, you need a cooling rack as well. You need multiple cooling racks that are footed, because once the cake comes out of the oven, you don't want to put it directly on a surface. You want the cake to cool. Now, Patrick, I just want to make the point that when you use, you don't need specialty cake pans. I make a heart-shaped cake using this round, and we've got some photos to show you, actually beautiful photos that were taken by Hannah Kaminsky, Bittersweet. You may know Hannah. If you don't, look her up. She's fabulous. She has a brand new book out that's wonderful. It's a book about cooking and baking on sheet pans. So that cake was made this way. And I actually shaped it freeform. And I am no artist, I can tell you that. But it was fun to do. And it gives you a chance to take a little nibble of the cake, which I really try not to do too much because I wanted it for the crumbs on top of the cake. Now, in terms of large and small appliances, I have a couple of KitchenAid stand mixers. You can see the difference here, right? So does it matter? Well, you can. This is the smaller mixer, and it works really well. It works fine. This is the larger one. This is a tilt head. This is not. This is considered a professional one. Aquafaba can be made, the vegan meringue with the chickpea water, if there's anybody who doesn't know yet what aquafaba is, can be made in either mixer. It's going to go faster in this one, depending on the quantity. So I tend to keep the smaller one on my counter, and the larger one is put away in a closet for when I need it. But I prefer the larger one. It takes a lot of space. I recently got this. You can see that I like red. This hand mixer. It's also KitchenAid, and this is cordless. So honestly, I didn't think it was going to do much of anything, but it works great. And every once in a while, I don't use it very often, but I make sure that it's charged before I put it in. Now, for small quantities, this is great. But when you're using a hand mixer, make sure, and you may already know this, that the bowl in which you're mixing is deep and narrow so things don't go splashing all over. My mother had an egg beater. I remember that, and things went splashing all over. Can you make aquafaba meringue with with those? I've had a few students who tell me they have, but it takes a very long time and it's not quite as stiff. Now, in terms of food processor versus food processor, I think a food processor is a should have, and the little teeny ones, I think, don't do very much. So a 10-11 bowl is good. Read the reviews. I have an ordinary food processor and I have a Roku, which is amazing. Think food processor that's like a Vitamix. Blender or high-speed blender like a Vitamix or a NutriBullet. My friend Chef Shar told me once that she thought I ought to consider a NutriBullet, and I got one, and it works for small quantities just fine, but it doesn't heat the way the Vitamix does. And I do use a stick blender as well. So, there are all different kinds. There are fancier ones than this, but I like pureeing right with the stick blender. And pretty much, let's see, sheet pans. I don't think that you can have a successful kitchen without sheet pans. They do everything. I have now my oven isn't large enough for a full sheet pan, but I have half, quarter, and eighths. I want to show you some cake, and it's in the refrigerator. Okay. So maybe you're doing cake for a crowd and you don't want to make a whole bunch of layers. These were all baked in a sheet pan. They're on the thin side, but quite enough really. And I used, let's see, I had to make 200 servings, tastings at a recent conference, the American Culinary Federation conference. I did a demo, and Chef Kirk Keefe, who went through EVD and Plant Pro, was my very able assistant, and he baked off 4 half sheets. We got 200 servings. Recently, I punched these out, these little ones. So I think it's super handy. They're super handy. Think about it. You can, oh, here's a half sheet for me to show you, a quarter. And I see my cutting board that I didn't see. So here's a sheet pan. You line it with parchment. It makes moving pies in and out of the oven easy. It will contain, if your fruit pie kind of spills over, it will contain it. You roast nuts, seeds, oats. I think they're amazing. Bake cookies, and I think that they are just a must, and I use them for mise en place as well. So saucepans, you probably have everything you need. I like using a saucier, and I want to show you the shape. And this is a pan that's considered a saucier, so it doesn't have straight sides. And the benefits are a few important ones. You're going to get more evaporation. That's great when you want to reduce aquafaba or a sauce. Works very well. And also, you know, when I'm making chocolate pudding, I have to make sure, or you have to make sure if you're making it, you know, for yourself, that the pudding, which is chocolate does burn, comes to a boil without scorching. When I do it, if you do it in a straight-sided pot, you're going to whisk, and then you're going to switch to a spatula and keep going. This makes it really easy because the sides are sloping. And this is an old, inexpensive. I have 2 of these, and it's kind of like a saucier. So those are things that I really like to have. Once you experience the ease of those, I think there's no going back. Now, a torch, do you need a culinary torch? That's not really a must unless you like baked Alaska, creme brulee, toasted meringue. But I have found another use for it recently, and that is I lightly warm a knife when I'm cutting cake, and I want the slices very neat, and I find it works as well as and a little less messy than dipping the knife into hot water. Cake turntable, you can manage without it. If you're new, I like having one. Cake decorating tips and bags. There are 3 tips that do most every job. The star tip, the rounds. So you can buy a very small set and see if you like that. And then a cupcake tin and liner. I think that's pretty much it for now. I've been talking for a long time, so I want to get to your questions. All right. Phoenix says, oh, how nice. Fran, I love you. Well, that's super. I'm glad you're still doing what you do. I used to be a kitchen assistant at the Natural Gourmet and would always maneuver to work at classes. No questions, just sending love. That's very sweet. Thank you, Phoenix. It's nice to hear from you. Chef Shar, many of you know Chef Shar. I went to her live event yesterday, which she calls Ask Me Anything. So Shar says, I notice on your IG, my Instagram, I'm Good Cakes Fran on Instagram, that you often make your own nice creams with so many machines like Jonas, Ninja, Nice Cream Maker. What do you recommend? What do you use? So if there's anyone here who doesn't know what we're referring to when we say nice creams, they're basically like a soft serve ice cream that's often made with a base of frozen banana and other fruits are added. Char and everyone, this might surprise you, but my favorite thing to use is my food processor. I could use my blender. I don't have those other machines, but in the food processor, I can actually watch the process, and it makes it easier for me to know when to stop. And it works in quantity as well, because when I teach at Rancho La Puerta Spa, we always do a baked Alaska using this nice cream base. You know, you don't need sweeteners often. It's just bananas and whatever frozen fruit you want. You can do chocolate and so on. So Char, that's what I use. Hi, Kathy. So my friend and colleague, Chef Kathy Gold, is here. And Kathy says, I keep saying to myself that not another piece of equipment is passing through my doorway, but I have dreams of an air fryer. Is it worth giving up counter space? I had to tell you a little backstory about Kathy. And, you know, you can go to the live event library and find a wonderful event that was done all about vanilla. Kathy, among other things, is an expert in vanilla. So go check that out. But Kathy had a brick and mortar culinary school in Haddonfield, New Jersey for many, many years called In the Kitchen Cooking School. And she has so much stuff. She has so much stuff. Now she's a neighbor, and we have essentially the same kitchen. Kathy, I like my air fryer. When I first got one, I got a small one. I was able to tuck it into a cabinet when I wasn't using it. Then I got something called a melty lid for my Instant Pot, so I didn't need another piece of equipment, and I think that works great. Oh, thank you. Patrick put Kathy's vanilla event in there, so you can check it out. So then I already have my Instant Pot. Now I have an air fry top, and it worked really well. And you're welcome to come upstairs and try it before you decide. My oven, and I think you have the same Breville oven, or you might have an older one, has an air frying attachment. Not an attachment, actually an air fry setting. And I think it works. So, you know, air fryers, that's just a convection setting on steroids. And so do I think it's worth giving up your counter space based on what I know? No, I think get the top for the Instant Pot or use the oven. Oh, here is, let's see, I just scrolled a little too far. Oh, another question from Chef Char. Char says, I have a 10-cup Cuisinart food processor that I purchased at Fonte's, our favorite place. It really is. It's a wonderful shop with wonderful people. And everyone in there can really answer your question about equipment. But Char says she has her eye on a refurbished Robocoo. Thoughts? Yes, I would say do it. So I have a Robocoo. I don't know if you can see it over here. This is the container. It's amazing. So again, think about this as the Vitamix version of a food processor. It's really wonderful. I use it very frequently. You don't use it for small quantities, but I have had mine. I bet for 25 years I haven't had a minute trouble with it. It's wonderful. Char, I think it's super worth it for the kind of work you do. Yes. Oh, Patrick. Oh, good. Patrick has a question. It's not the most exciting question, he says, but what's your go-to spatula, silicone, wood, or something else? So if you read the description to this live event and you saw Spatula Curious, that was Patrick. I like these the best. I'm not big because they're easy to clean, they're easy to sanitize, and they work. I'm not super big on using wood, but I have some wooden spoons, so I do like that. I hope that helps, Patrick. Hi, Regina. Regina says, do you think it's okay to use a commercial product like Flora butter for a vegan cookie class I'm teaching? It's my go-to butter, but not a product the students can get at the local supermarket. Well, I think you answered your own question, Regina. If you're teaching, people how to make something, they have to be able to get the ingredients. So I would say the answer is no. However, Flora is coming out with a new cream, a new Flora cream that is going to be available in the supermarkets. And also, instead of using Flora butter, you use Country Crock sticks, which are Flora butter that is available in the markets. Kathleen is asking, what's your preferred method of grinding whole spices? I have a Vitamix that has a pitcher for dry ingredients, but I'm not sure. I have the dry container as well for my Vitamix. No, it's much too big for grinding spices. So this is what I use, and I'm really happy with it. It's a little Cuisinart spice and nut grinder. It has some, I got some wonderful cumin from, yeah, that's what it smells like. So I didn't wash it because I want to grind some more. So this is what I use. Also, when it's clean, I might use this to grind small quantities of sugar. I find that very, very, very handy. Let's see. Kathleen has another question here. Thank you for your advice on how to improve the consistency of my nice cream using the food processor and decreasing the amount of plant milk I was using made a difference. Yes, that's the benefit I was talking about using the food processor, is you can really see what's happening as the frozen fruit creams. So, the same with sauces, with anything, unless there's a prescribed amount for a reason, you want to use the least amount of liquid you can. You can always add more, but you can't. It's hard to take away. My favorite flavor of nice cream, Kathleen? Well, I think it depends on the time. I mean, I like this time of the year, I like strawberry and blueberry and raspberry. I always like chocolate. And I like using softened dates, pitted Majol dates, and making like a caramel flavor. Dates don't freeze solid, so it's like chewy caramel. And so that's something that I like. Hi, Laura. Laura says, love the elongated measuring spoons you recommended, the powdered sugar duster, and the Nordic ware bun pan. So you want to make your cakes look really gorgeous. You don't have to do anything. You get this, look at beautiful. I've got photos posted on my Instagram of cakes made using this pan. This is the small size. This is one recipe, for example, of the chocolate cake to live for, and I have the larger size as well. With these pans, you need to oil them very, very carefully, get into all the grooves. And I find the most reliable way to make sure that your cake will come out of the pan is to use a spray with flour. And then you don't want to soak the pan. You want to clean it right away. Let me show you what the measuring spoons. This is what Laura's talking about. These are really cool. So I have a couple of sets of these. They have an 1/8 teaspoon as well, but if you need to get into a jar, this is easier than the round short ones. So they're really available kind of everywhere. But I'm glad you like that. The powdered sugar duster was a gift to me from Chef Kathy Gold, and you put a little powdered sugar, or I use it for cocoa powder too, and you just flick and you get this very nice event. So Christina says, love your live events. Well, thank you for that. What's my favorite piece of equipment in the pantry? Am I a gadget person? I am, and I try not to be a gadget person because I really think about space and not having too much clutter and just not having too much. I will tell you all that in the back of my apartment, there is a big closet and it's deep, and I'm sure that it was meant to be with shelves, a linen closet. I have so much bakeware in there. I have all my bakeware in there from a different time in my life. Now I look at it and I think, do I really need 8 of these or whatever? Maybe I'll open a shop. So no, I'm not. I really assess before I buy something. Am I going to use it? I tend not to, I'll see ads for gadgets and I tend to be a little reluctant or suspicious. So I don't have gadgets. Recently, this is something that I bought recently. It's they're tart rings and they're perforated. I didn't mind buying these. I wouldn't call it a gadget because I know that I will use them on my sheet pan. So if anybody here has a favorite gadget, let us know. Sarah says, I love the courses and your expertise. Thank you. She'd like a healthy go-to fruit-based cake or cobbler, like nice cream is. My guilt-free approach is I try not to have guilt around eating treats. I treat them as treats. I eat very healthfully. I have a very healthful diet, and then I save room for a little treat. So nice cream would be one. Fruit, when you're using dried fruits, for example, the sweetness is so concentrated, you don't have to add any other sweetness. Cobblers are super easy to make, and any time of the year, different in the fall, I'll be making apple and pear cobblers. Right now, berry, peach, nectarine. I did one recently with fruit that was just on the cusp of not being okay, and I didn't want to waste it. So you taste the fruit. You want to make sure, it might need a little bit of sweetener and it might not need any. And then if you're looking for something on the healthier side, do an oat-based crumble on the top. And that's a thing to do. We also, we do fruit gels, agar gels. Those have no sugar at all. And Sarah says also that she likes using preserved lemon in vegetarian stews. How might I use it in a dessert? That would be really interesting because, I like a little bit of a salty taste and I love acid in everything. It just perks things up. So I think you can use it in any kind of a lemon dessert or a citrus dessert. Susan says, hi, Susan. Susan loves to bake and she's trying to embrace the no oil vegan way. But this is one area that I'm not doing as well. Any suggestions for cookbooks or references? For the no oil way, we have the Forks Over Knives course, which is a no oil course, and Culinary RX as well. Any of the Esselstyn cookbooks, there's a brand new one out by Jane and her mom. What I just saw it. It's like Women Warrior or something like that. But any of those cookbooks, Esselstyn would be my way to go. The Engine 2 cookbooks as well. You can get some nice results. They're not going to be exactly the same. In my cookbook, Vegan Chocolate, for example, my breakthrough cake, my signature cake, is called the chocolate cake to live for. So it's done with 1/4 cup of oil. That's 2 ounces of oil for 12 servings. There is also a gluten-free version, and there's also a no oil added version, because I made that cake for Rip Esselstyn's wedding, and I wasn't going to bring a cake with oil to their wedding. And it was good. It took me a while to figure out how to do it. It's good. but they're not exactly the same. So just keep at it. Use, you'll be using dates and things. Thank you. Patrick put the new cookbook in there. So I would look at this book. I would also look at the Engine 2 cookbooks. Tammy says, how do I get consistent edges when decorating a cake? Well, you want to make sure that your cake is cold when you get started. Decorating, finishing a cold cake is a good thing. A crumb coat before you go ahead and finish it is a good thing. And then there are, I know it's here, but I'm going to walk over and get another one. You can use something like this. You really want your cake elevated. You want your cake prepared well and elevated on a turntable so you can see what you're doing. And you want to have patience. Make sure that your cream, your cake, your creams, consider the temperature. Let's see. Hi, Lauren. Lauren wants to know, Lauren says, thank you for putting this together. Well, thank you for coming. Do I have a preferred brand of bakeware for cake pans? That's a really good question. I have many. I used to use Wilton. Is very easy to find. These are Fat Daddy-O's, and I've started using Fat Daddy-O. I think the results are very good, and they're very easily found. Very easily found. So Julia wants to know, and I hope that helps you, Lauren, because Lauren does a lot of very beautifully decorated, gigantic, some of them are gigantic cakes. She does it for fun. She has a really serious day job. Lauren went through Plant Pro and Essential Vegan Desserts. Julia wants to know what's the best pizza flour. Julia, I haven't made pizza in a long time, so I don't know. If questions can still, I bet you that Chef Kathy would know that. So Kath, if you can pop that into the Q&A, we'll come back to it. Sarah says, I've often guessed at a cake being done when the toothpick confuses. Is there a temperature at which batter is done where? I don't use, I know some people use an instant read thermometer to assess the doneness of a cake, but I do use a cake tester, and the ones I use are wood, not metal, because it's easier to tell. But I don't only rely on the tester. You want to see, has the cake pulled away from the sides of the pan? It's risen. And then look at the center of the cake. Now I'm talking about the vegan cakes that I make. The color should be this, it should be uniform. When a cake isn't baked fully, the center of the cake is going to be a slightly darker, shinier color. So you want your wooden pick to have only, if it comes out completely clean, maybe the cake is overdone. The cakes in this course are very moist, so that is rarely a problem. And then I touch the toothpick. If the toothpick feels gummy at all, it is not ready. But that's an interesting question. I know there are some people who are saying you can check the temperature, the internal temperature. Maybe the next time that I bake one of my cakes, I'll do that. Carol's asking, do you adjust the temperature and time when using your countertop oven? Carol, it bakes just like, from what I've seen, it bakes just like a standard oven. When I have it on convection mode, yes, and I cut the temperature back and the time back as I would in a standard oven. But I am so happy with that oven. Chef Shar was teaching at a library with something called the Charlie cart, and this particular oven was on the Charlie cart. It bakes just like an oven. Cynthia says you mentioned using a culinary torch. Let us know which brand you prefer. Well, I don't actually know what brand that is, but I can, again, I look and see reviews. I bought that one at Fonte's. All culinary stores have it. Don't get any fancy one. Look for something that's going to have a solid base and a slider so that you can adjust the length of the flame. I'll get a link for you and we'll put it in the in a document for this event. You can go back and look. Hi, Marina. Marina says, hi, Chef Fran. Just stopped by to say hello. Well, I'm glad to see you. Marina has graduated very successfully from Essential Vegan Desserts. And she says, could not live without my Vitamix and food processor. Now, for many years, I didn't suggest that people consider getting a high-speed blender like a Vitamix or a Blendtec are the two most widely known brands as far as I know, because they're very pricey. But they, there are tasks that you really need one of these high-speed blenders, and you can buy reconditioned ones, and they come with a guarantee and so on. They are workhorses. I have burned out so many blenders and so many food processors, both at home and at work. I want my work to go well, and so I think it's worth it. Regina says, I have those perforated rings, but not sure how to use them. So here's a question. This really ties into what do you need? I'm wondering why you bought them. Did you buy them for a particular use, or you saw them and you thought those are cute? How you use them is you roll out some pastry dough, you cut it out to fit the bottom, then you cut strips that fit along the sides and you get them in, and that's how you use them. They make nice tartlets. So Tracy, hi Tracy, where do you buy the small mise en place bowls, the small ones that are like a tablespoon size? You've looked online? Well, I'm pretty sure I got mine online. So these are my little mise en place bowls. I have glass ones as well. Write to me at fran@ruby.com and I will get you a link. And also, the person who asked about the pizza flour, write to me and I will let you know if there was a question that I didn't answer. Write to me at fran@ruby.com and I'll be happy to answer your question. I want to thank you. Wow, time really flew. I want to thank you all for being here with me today. It was a pleasure. It was fun for me to look at my equipment and think, what do I really like and what don't I really like? And what don't I really use very often? But I do want to say, whatever you buy quality. Maybe don't buy as much, but when you're buying, where are they? When you're buying measuring cups, buy ones that make sense to you. I like these, so I bought these primarily because I do a fair amount of travel teaching and they're light, but it makes getting the ingredients out really easily. I think these small OXO ones are a must. They hold up to 2 ounces. They've got milliliters, the whole 9 yards. It's a visual way to know that, gee, I'm really not using very much sweetener. I'm not using very much oil, but oftentimes that's all you need. So I really like those. I want to see what else. Peelers. This is a really good sharp peeler. doesn't last forever. And I have a number of these scoops in all different sizes. It helps me measure, I mean, this is a very small one, but I will use this, for example, to make the drop biscuit batter when I want things even. And you want good ones. So when you're buying measuring spoons and measuring cups, I recommend getting metal ones, not plastic ones, and making sure that you're getting good things. Most of what I showed you today, I have had for years, for many, many, many years. I take care of my equipment. When you buy baking sheets that are cheap, they're going to warp in a hot oven. And we don't want to give ourselves these problems or have to buy something twice. So just keep that in mind. You can build your pastry kitchen slowly. Buy what you need, don't overbuy, and then add on to it. So I know I said goodbye before, but I just wanted to add that. I hope I'll see you next month. Next month is going to be open office hours. There's not a particular topic, so please come back and chat with me. And then after that, we're going to, oh my gosh, I don't want to think about September and October. Summer is my favorite season, although this one was a bit much. It was very hot. So I don't want to push the time away, but in October, I'm going to have an ingredients spotlight. Be well, be safe, be happy, eat happy, and thank you all for being here with me today. Bye.